Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how one of the main contenders to replace Nicola Sturgeon as SNP leader and First Minister of Scotland seems to have ended her hopes within hours of launching her campaign. It's actually a very interesting case of how not to do politics. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So yeah, I'm going to discuss this from the point of view of the distinction, which I think many people fail to recognise, between a political leader's beliefs and where they align their party. It's not the same thing if you want to win. You know, I'll be drawing in examples from Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. You could use so many others as well. But the main meat of this really is SNP leadership hopeful Kate Forbes sinking her campaign on the same day it began. Now, on the face of it, someone like Kate Forbes was always going to struggle to replace Sturgeon. You know, my video last week, I described the SNP as being a fairly broad church, just like Labour and the Conservatives are, which unites people around, in their case, the idea of Scottish independence. But as a party of government, they also need domestic policies as well. That can cause some friction, just like it can in any broad church party. But with the SNP, maybe a little bit more, because you've got a mix of not just different groups within the left or the right of politics, but a mixture of left and right in there. But although the SNP is that bit of a mix, polling shows very clearly that the vast majority of members are on the left economically and liberal socially. So a leadership contender who is basically a conservative that wants independence may not be the best fit. Quite right to have her in government, if she's considered competent to balance out the cabinet. The vast majority of members and supporters may well be left-wing and liberal, but there's still a good chunk who are right-wing or authoritarian, and you want to cover all bases. But tricky for her to actually lead the party. Unless, of course, she was mindful that her beliefs were out of kilter with the party. Like, you take my politics, for example. I am on what you'd call the soft left. I could sit down with someone on the hard left and we discuss policies. We would find ourselves in agreement on most issues. Domestic policies anyway. Maybe we'd best steer clear of international politics. The difference between us, that I understand that my views are not shared by the majority, and so there is no way to implement a manifesto of my political beliefs democratically. And I'm not in favour of forcing a population to accept my views. I would rather debate than subjugate. Those on the hard left either believe their views are mainstream, or they have no problem being part of an armed uprising designed to impose it Stalin style, for the greater good, of course. Essentially, if I were leading a government, the policies of the party would not be my policies. There would be some common ground, of course, but the policies would be the policies that would get me elected, that the people wanted. That's democracy. We see this with Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is not politically where the Labour Party under Keir Starmer is. People think his politics matches that of the party because he's the leader. So therefore, whatever the policies of the party are must be his policies. Like, no, he is a leader trying to get elected. He's not an absolute monarch who can do as he likes. Rishi Sunak's Tories are not in his mould either, except in the case of Sunak, he's not trying to move his party to a position where the public approve, but to where the various factions of his party can coexist. But it is the same principle. Rishi Sunak is adopting policies which are not necessarily ones he believes in, although some inevitably will be, of course, just as with Starmer. He's adopting policies which stop his party fracturing. And both Starmer and Sunak may make mistakes with this, but that is their motivation. It will also be the motivation of whomever replaces Nicola Sturgeon if they hope to maintain the electability of the party. Kate Forbes didn't seem to understand this. In fact, she doesn't seem to understand it even today after the backlash. She said a number of very stupid things yesterday, with the dumbest of all being that she would have voted against gay marriage. Oh dear. I said at the time it was reported that I thought Yusuf had this now, the other main contender. In reality, there may be, others that emerge. I don't know. But of the people standing, Kate Forbes and Humza Yousaf seems to be getting most of the media attention, although Ash Regan seems to be in there on the betting odds. But what a stupid thing to say. even if people would infer from her known religious background that she may have strict conservative views on social issues, and indeed clearly does, what a stupid thing to say. We all have views that are out of kilter with majority public opinion. And they're not always unpleasant views either, but we all have them. But as a politician, and especially a senior politician, you need to be very mindful of which of your views are an electoral asset and which are going to be a drawback. And you remain very, very quiet about the drawbacks. If people ask you about them, you simply say that you are governing for the people, not yourself. That's democratic. But Forbes just didn't seem to get this. Consider that it's not just the SNP members that are mostly socially liberal, but their voters as well. The SNP rose to prominence as a result of attracting former dissatisfied Labour voters. Some Conservative ones as well, sure, why not? But not, I can't imagine many of those with the strict Conservative values. But the SNP is going to have to retain the voters that Nicola Sturgeon built up. Saying that you are against gay marriage, it's not really the way to do that. She thought she was calming people down by saying that she wouldn't seek to reverse any rights currently in existence, including that for gay marriage. Well, that's very kind of you. But that is not the point. What she was effectively saying is that no new rights would be championed under her watch. That's what she was saying. The rights you've got right now, okay, you can keep those, but you're not getting any more. She also tried to justify it by saying that although she would have voted against gay marriage, she would have accepted the democratic will. But if she's heading up the government, she is in a position to decide which bills are presented to Parliament on behalf of the government, isn't she? She would effectively be vetoing new legal rights before they ever come up for a vote, so the democratic will is irrelevant. An absolute moment of madness saying that. She launched her campaign with a nice looking video, clearly carefully thought out, where she talked about being a unifying figure. Then a few hours later, she shits the bed in the most spectacular fashion. Didn't even end there either. The SNP are in alliance with the Scottish Greens, the purpose of which was to give a pro-referendum supermajority in Holyrood. But of course, it's agreed to a common legislative programme on other matters as well. But Forbes clearly isn't interested in maintaining that alliance. She said that she would keep the agreement, but it would be up to them to live with her plans. In other words, you will do as I say. If you don't like it, that's up to you. So from already being an outlier in her party, Forbes made really clear that the SNP would be adopting economic and social policies which would be very much at odds with the clear majority of both the membership and, much more importantly, their voters. She believed that she could just go ahead and turn the SNP into a party of her beliefs. What would be her plan? To compete with the Conservatives instead of Labour for votes? That is a much smaller pool and a tougher one to access. And it would be particularly foolish to go with someone like Forbes at this time as well. The Conservatives got away in 2019 with presenting a platform which was very far from the majority of their usual voters, only because Labour were also doing the same. And, well, people had to sort of pick one. But Labour are sorting themselves out now, including in Scotland. Some within Labour have already said that they feel they could target more seats now after Sturgeon's resignation. An assessment, no doubt, that they recognise Sturgeon as a formidable leader. Indeed, Starmer was speaking at the Scottish Labour conference this week, in fact, I think it was yesterday, where he paid tribute to her. But probably also an assessment that they didn't believe the SNP had anyone waiting in the wings of her stature ready to take over. It may well be that whoever wins will grow into the role. But there's maybe about a year and a half before the next Westminster election. In that time, the SNP are going to be working on their referendum strategy almost from scratch. It sounds to me like some senior figures in the party want to go back to the drawing board on that. And then working to build up a platform for the new leader. Huge opportunity for Labour. The last thing the SNP need to do is to get behind a leader who will make Starmer and Sarwar's job much easier. So whoever the next leader of the SNP ends up being, I think it's safe to say it won't be Kate Forbes. Her campaign lasted about 6 hours. Not that she's withdrawn. She still thinks she can win, mind you. She was on today. She was doubling down on her view. She wasn't even going, oh, that's gone a bit wrong. I'll try and rein back on it and make out that it was taken out of context. That's what you usually do, don't they? Oh, it's taken out of context. Let me clarify by saying something that's completely the opposite. No, she doubled down on it on Radio 4, I gather. Apparently, you know, she said that yesterday wouldn't have done her any harm because most SNP members aren't on Twitter. Well, this may be true, I don't know. But as she has repeated her statements on national radio, and the other news media outlets will have reported it, I think she must imagine SNP members mostly live in caves or something, if she thinks she will get away with it. A senior member of her campaign team last night was reported to have used rather colourful language to suggest she'd blown it already. She's fluffed it, sort of different word. Her main legacy is now likely to be a cautionary tale of just how not to do politics. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.